What's your thoughts on government cover-ups or covert societies attempting to control humanity? Do you believe in ancient astronauts, intergalactic communication, or extraterrestrial visitations? Ever had an experience with disembodied spirits or the paranormal universe? Are these subjects fact or fiction? Each week, Tony and Eddie explore these unbelievable realities and beyond. Exclusively on Truth Be Told.
Welcome to Truth Be Told, where we believe an experience becomes truth. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and along with me now, we have world-renowned psychic, Eddie Connor.
Hi, everybody.
We want to thank you for supporting our sponsors, Earth Friendly Products. For over 40 years, Earth Friendly Products have brought you the greenest home products for all your family needs. Go to ecos.com, that's ecos.com.
And speaking of sponsors, we'd like for you to take your mind on a literary journey. Travel over to adventuresunlimitedpress.com, where you can purchase books from many of the famed experts featured right here on Truth Be Told.
I'm very excited about tonight's guest. He is a best-selling author and psychic counselor. We have Jack Rourke in the house, and he's going to give us all 5 things that we can change our life.
Oh, that's going to be fun. Jack is one of the most prominent working psychics in North America today. He's the author of The Rational Psychic, which is a skeptic's guide to extraordinary perception. Now, he's also recognized as an authority on paranormal phenomenon, and he's appeared on Destination America, ABC, NBC, Fox, the History and Travel channels, Showtime, and the BBC, and that's just to name a few, Tony. In addition, Jack is featured as the real-life Patrick Jane in the special documentary included within the first season DVD release of the hit TV show, The Mentalist. In this short film, Jack discusses psychic police work alongside former FBI and other experts. His radio appearances also include Coast to Coast with George Norrie, Overnight America, and UBN Radio's Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. Please welcome Psy investigator, best-selling author, and psychic counselor, Jack Rourke.
That audience.
Hey,
It goes crazy.
Look at them. They're just everywhere.
It loves Jack.
I did not expect that.
Angels in the ethers, a standing ovation.
My goodness. The overwhelm.
Well, thank you for being here, Jack. I appreciate it.
It's great to be back. I thought you were being hidden from me the last couple of times I've been here.
I know. He locks me in a closet.
Yeah.
As you notice, he doesn't stay there long.
What does that mean? So
That's another show.
I know, right? So, Eddie, I'm going to let you take lead and go for it.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk with you today about 5 things that can change your life, and from which perspective are we going to get these? Meaning, you're obviously a guy. He's a man.
He's a man.
Yeah, he a man. And you're a Psy investigator. You're a psychic counselor. You're an author. So with these 5 things, what perspective are you going to be coming from for Tony's audience today?
I think mostly I would be speaking from experience and from working with clients for nearly 20 years. So So should I just kick it off? Or
no, I'm going to ask you first. So I'm going to go through the bullet points first. Oh no. So I wanted to ask that first because doing this work, we have a show we call the Psychic Cafe, the Psychic Killers Cafe.
Yeah.
And one of the fun things, as you know, because you're intuitive, people, as soon as they find out at a cocktail party that you're a psychic, the first thing they're like, oh my God, tell me what I'm thinking.
No. I was at, not too long ago, I was at a little get-together at the Chateau Marmont.
It was at the Chateau Marmont.
Yeah.
I was at Starbucks. He was at Chateau Marmont with Terrence Howard.
All right. So I'll skip the name dropping part and just get right to the funny thing. So there's this woman who was an editor at a major magazine was sitting next to me.
Which magazine?
I'm not going to say.
Okay.
Anyway, she found out what I do or what we do, and of course you weren't there, but she's found out what I did, and she said, "Oh my God, can you talk to my dog?"
And this is absolutely authentic.
Yeah. And no disrespect for the people that do that. But I had through the conversation we had that led up to her realizing what I do for a living, that I felt like I'd established some measure of dignity, personal dignity. And then all of a sudden I was reduced, after all my credentials, being reduced to talking to her pet, but no, that really happens.
Yeah. And so everyday people, and I mean that in the highest regard, because
Conventionally sensing people.
Yes, who don't do what we do, but they would obviously not understand it. I don't know how a physicist does what they do. I don't know how a mechanic fixes my Nissan. Evidently not very good. And so I have to ask questions, and I'm hoping I'm not asking ignorant questions.
Yeah.
And so the perspective you're coming from is all of everything you've learned with your clients and what you've learned in your own personal research.
Right, in my personal life, and I try to keep things really practical, because one of the things that I found is oftentimes with people that do work similar to ours is they tend to rely on a lot of sort of metaphysical concepts or metaphors and things like that, and what that does is really disconnects people from the place of power that resides within them, and that's that feeling space.
Yeah.
They tend to exteriorize emotions and call them colors, or animate them into little beings or things like this. And so I really tried to speak in really grounded, rational, practical terms, and bordering on even sort of technical terms for different phenomena and things like that. So we can remain not just in our minds stable, but really kind of descend into our bodies, into an emotional place that's grounded in reality, rather than sort of jettisoning up into here somewhere above our heads and into sentimentality.
And a lot of people who do the kind of work we do, the healing, the intuition, the mediumship, etc., I personally have found over the years that most of us can't balance a checkbook. And they live from their throat chakra, their third eye, and their crown chakra and up. They hardly ever are grounded securely in their earth chakra. So the bottom three chakras are all earth. It's survival, sacral, and your self-esteem and your self-confidence. And then there's the heart chakra, which is not of the earth and not of the heavens. And then you have your third eye, your crown, and your throat chakra. And these are your heaven chakras. And the way that you get grounded is, in a woo-woo way, is you come from your heart chakra as frequently as you can, which will bring your heaven and earth together as one. And so you're bringing science and the intuitive aspect of who we all are as individuals into the 5 topics. Does that make sense?
Well, it kind of makes sense, yeah, but it also it speaks to another point as well, is that what most people don't recognize is that extrasensory perception, by and large, among naturally psychic people, is an affect of the fight or flight response. And it comes from a wounded place. It comes from fragmentation. And so...
And getting knocked in the head.
Sure. And so what happens is that folks like us, oftentimes, they do kind of are operating very much in the mind, in the mental, and up here, because what that does is they've created a persona. They've created a way of a strategy to manage themselves, to keep themselves from dropping through a place into something that historically may have been more frightening, a place to really feel the reality of what had happened to them or what's going on. And so when they develop this alternative way of balancing themselves through perceiving information or being able to predict and control their environment, it's very difficult for them to let go of that. Because to let go of that, they have to reconfigure that persona that actually stabilizes them and keeps them from feeling what's really happening.
And would you say there's a grounded way to... Some people can do that in more grounded, balanced ways than other people can, what you just described?
You mean use their extrasensory perception?
Yes.
Certainly can. I mean, RV people, remote viewing people, that's by and large a very analytical process.
Yes.
It's very cut and dry. It's a technical process of putting aside the linear thinking mind and accessing this sort of universal consciousness, allowing them to dial in and get facts and then dial out again with conceivably little emotional attachment or sort of trauma. But when people continue with that RV work, what happens is as you get better and better and better, the way to get better and better and better is to add a little more of that feeling to it, because the analytical side of RV really just kind of gives the framework, gives the nuts and bolts, can help you identify a location, the shapes of this and that, but the feeling aspect of us is what colors in between the lines and adds the texture.
And so in my world, it's the feeling that is the part that creates the reality. Meaning feelings are 99.99% what attracts and magnetizes things to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the action is less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And so the balance that's my belief system. So the balance would be to find a way to bring those in equally in a grounded way.
Right.
Would that make sense?
Sure. And that kind of speaks us into one of the first things I wanted to talk about, which was getting rid of your story. You know, the story that we all tell ourselves about what happened to me, or how great I am, you know, or why I am the way I am, you know. Recently, something else that I do for fun, I'm also a martial arts instructor. And so I was recently working with a guy who's about 60 years old. And the great things about martial arts is it really does, in the training, it forces you to confront who you actually are. Men or women, but I'll speak about men for a moment. But, you know, men, we all like to feel like we can handle our business, right? But the truth of the matter is, once you get into an environment where everything becomes physical, you're soon confronted with the reality of who you actually are, how much you can really take and what you're really capable of. And that's very difficult for people sometimes, and it forces you to sort of confront all of your underlying fears and insecurities about, you know, who I am and what I'm really capable of. And so recently I was working with this older gentleman, and very difficult, kind of arrogant. And I'm working with him, and all of a sudden he stops and starts telling me this story about his life, you know, about, well, I've always been like this and like that. And I just stood there and waited for him to stop. And I'm listening to his story, and then when he was done, I said, I didn't ask you for your story, you know. And he didn't quite know what to say. But we all do that to some degree or another, don't we? You know, when something awful happens, we begin to craft a story around it to add some logic to the way we feel, instead of just staying present with what's occurring in our body. Because when transformation happens, when we resolve whatever trauma that is or whatever sadness, for instance, recently I had a friend who was going through a really painful breakup. And what she was going through had nothing to do with the breakup. It had everything to do with her primary relationships and what this encounter triggered in her.
Which would go all the way back to where?
To her childhood.
That's what
abandonment.
Yeah.
You know, her primary relationship with her dad. And so she just couldn't stay with that. And finally she figured it out, and she called me one day and she said, you know, I realized because I never, and she started on this 5-minute discourse about this person she had broken up with and how she had never really been in love before. And it was this whole thing, this sentimental, sappy bullshit about, right. You know, that really if you know, logically you can connect the dots and go, okay, so that's why you're feeling the way you're feeling, but it had nothing to do with anything. We do this to ourselves constantly. So we have to get out of our stories and get in touch with who we are and what actually is going on inside of us.
So what we're talking about is 5 things that can help change your life with you, Jack Rourke. The first one is to get over your story. And why do you think change freaks people out so much?
Change brings uncertainty. We don't realize that our stories create a framework that really makes us feel safe. No matter how awful it is, no matter how distressing it may have been, or even how our story keeps us from living the life of our dreams or receiving the things that we desire. Our stories secure us in this place where we know what's going to happen next. You know, a lot of us get addicted to the adrenaline of drama. You know, and drama in itself is an avoidance of emotion. You know?
Wow, so drama is an avoidance of emotion.
It's a dramatization of one's feelings without actually feeling it. Let's say we know that secretly that
Tony
is just a big diva. And he runs this radio station.
We knew that.
Yeah.
That's not a secret.
But let's say, you know, let's say that, you know, this is his ship and he's going to captain it, and one day you feel like your voice isn't being heard. So that triggers you feeling rejected, or maybe there was a time earlier in your life when you felt not heard or respected.
Yeah.
So rather than stopping and going, wow, that hurts me, and I feel sad because I thought Tony was my friend, instead of going there and then approaching Tony, go, look, man, we were, I love you. You're my friend. We're colleagues. Can you tell me what's going on? You get puffed up. You inflate yourself and you become, doesn't he know who he's talking to? And I'm Eddie Connor, and how dare he? And then you maybe call a friend and you globalize it and say, can you believe? Well, he always, and he,
Wow.
and you build
People
up.
are so addicted to that.
Exactly. But all of that drama is just a way to avoid your own sadness for feeling hurt by a friend that you care about.
So what I was picturing when you were saying that was a shield.
Yeah.
It got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was a glass wall.
Sure.
Eventually, that kept me from feeling what I needed to feel in a healthy, grounded way.
Right.
And was making somebody else the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, that's blaming. That's part of it.
Yeah.
But the analogy I like to use is, think of a squid, right? And you're in the ocean, and the water's nice and clear, and the squid comes up to you, and what happens as soon as that squid gets afraid?
You go, boo, jazz hands, and it goes, shit.
And it shoots out all that black ink.
Yeah.
And it creates all kinds of chaos, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens, jazz hands,
That's what happens, jazz hands.
right?
And so when
That
one
visual, by the way.
Yeah.
yeah,
Jazz hands.
Is this going to be on the website?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
it'll be like just Jack, literally.
Right.
So how does your story meet your needs? I'm reading that. So what we were just talking about is a great example of that. So we have a false, often sense of how we think our story fits our needs. But if we don't go deeper into it, then we'll really never know. Meaning, if we don't actually feel the source and track it back to where we first had the experience.
Sure. Our story keeps us from being responsible for where and what's going on in our life right now. It puts it back in the past. Maybe it puts it in the future, or it puts it on Tony, or puts it on Eddie. And it says that I'm powerless because I'm a result of these circumstances, right? And we know that's not true.
Right.
Right. I mean,
But we keep telling the story.
Sure, we keep telling ourselves that because it protects us from feeling the sadness and the loss, and from taking on a level of fearlessness or the rejection that could happen if we really put ourselves toward what we really want. So we stay in this safe little cocoon space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That so let's play a game.
Let's do it.
What's your story in one sentence or less? What's your story, Jacob? What's your story now? This is my old story. This will be easier. My old story was, I work this hard and my arms are stretched from here to Beijing, and I only get paid this much. That was my old story. And I believed it because I saw my parents live it and their parents live it. Now, that's not my story anymore. It took me 54 years to get out of the story.
Right.
But that was my old story, and I got proof of it every time I turned around. Now, that's not just a monetary thing. That story affected friendships, relationships, family, my automobile, everything. So what's your new story, or what was your old story in a sentence or less?
In this, not one word, but okay.
Sentence.
Yeah, that was mine.
Yeah.
Was I gave 200% and would get back 10%. But my new story is, I'm what I'm putting in, I'm getting back.
Good.
Spiritually, mentally, physically, all that.
Good. Jacob.
For me, basically, I always really take into consideration what people say, and it really affected me at first. But now, as I reached the age of 21, I kind of started doing things more on my own, and just trying to figure out who I am, stuff like that. So basically, just starting to work on my own path, I guess you can say. Yeah.
Yeah. And is it easy or hard for you to stay on the quote new path of you honoring your own word to yourself instead of being sensitive to other people?
A little bit. I mean, you just always have to look out for the best for yourself, but still have good consideration of your family and your friends. So still be there for other people, but at the same time, still be there for yourself,
I like that. So one of the things that you talk about in getting over your story, I like this. You are not as bad or as great as you think you are. I like that. But you also say how you can break the cycle is raise your standards and create new boundaries.
Yeah.
So give us an example of just the illustrations we gave you on how to raise your standards that could help us raise our standards or create new boundaries. Jacob did a good one with creating new boundaries just then.
Sure. And, with family or when intimate relationships or things like that, sometimes we have these rules that we believe that I'll never be understood, or, I have to do, or I have to earn love, that love just doesn't happen, And so we conduct ourselves in ways that actually teach people how to mistreat us. Yeah. And from that, we don't realize that we're actually sometimes provoking people to treat us in a way that's consistent with our story. And there can be a loss of control, right?
Yeah.
And things get confused and muddled, and you feel like I keep dating the same person. And of course, it can't be our fault.
Never.
Why am Eddie, I'm sure you've probably never had a client say, I'm 40 years old and I've dated the same man 100 times.
Never.
Or I've married the same woman 3 times. They all want my money.
Yeah.
And it never stops to, people never stop to think what's consistent in this equation.
Exactly.
It's me. It's my perception. And I'm kind of the ilk that it's our perception that creates our experience, what creates our reality, that there may be little that we can do to actually manipulate, what's out there. But our what we can control is how we feel and how we're being and where we're being. And then everything else sort of changes itself from there, because our needs change when we're more deeply connected with ourselves. Our needs change, and we stop trying to get Tony to love me because I love myself. And when Tony's being cruel or mean to me or being a diva, I know because he's disconnected. It's not me. And so I can be still, and I can watch someone I care about in crisis and wait for that moment. And as I begin to resonate stillness and acceptance, he suddenly becomes aware that it's just his car keys that he can't find.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be a dick. You know what I mean? And suddenly, there's no drama. We're just two people doing the best we can. Yeah?
Yeah, and not making you responsible for me and or vice versa.
Right.
Just going back to your core essence.
Yeah. It all really comes down to the degree to which we're really grounded and connected to ourselves. And how we do that is remaining aware of what we're genuinely feeling. Not what we want to feel,
Right.
Not that we want to project, nothing we're trying to create. It's how am I actually feeling what's going on with me?
And am I really feeling what I'm feeling, or do I think I'm feeling what I'm feeling, or am I actually feeling?
Or am I on autopilot,
Yeah.
just sitting in the passenger seat, watching my story play out on the windshield over and over again?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And there's so many layers to this.
Yeah, we could do 100 things to change your life rather than just,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you guys familiar with the actress and dancer model Tawny Katane?
Yeah.
She was in the 80s.
Before you were born.
I know, I was like,
You were still an angel.
Yep.
She her name wasn't Tawny. Her name, and I don't know, and this is public record. She says this herself.
Yeah.
This is a great example. She lived in the nicest, wealthiest section of Orange County. She was drop dead gorgeous. So she was one of the popular girls. I mean, everybody knew who she was. All the money in the world, all the nice cars, all the beautiful mother, the beautiful father, everything was perfect. And one day she came home from school. She was she was about 13 or 14. And her mother's crying. And there are suitcases in the foyer at the Chateau Marmont.
Yes. Say foyer, please.
Foyer. And in the South, they're foyers. And she comes in. The mother's crying. They get in the car with the suitcases. They leave their home, their family, their life, their money, their father, and everything that they had, all the physical luxury, the perfect ever after life. And then they go to a really bad section of town.
Mm-hmm.
The father cut them off. He was going to go and marry somebody else and literally left them kind of on Skid Row. She couldn't take it. She could not take it. It was too much change. She was identified in a certain way, and now she's going to this other school district. Now, she was still who she was, drop-dead gorgeous girl.
Right.
But she could not take it. So on the way to school, the very first day of school, she made up a name for herself. She took on a new identity.
Oh, right.
So
I have heard this story.
She named herself Tawny. And Tawny Katane, because it sounded exotic and beautiful. She made up all these lies about her life to her new school, her new friends, her new environment.
Yeah.
And she had a sort of split experience, and then got into the more drugs and the alcohol and different things like that in an attempt to cope and ground herself back, because she was still so upset from that experience.
Right.
And some of what you're giving, that's an extreme story.
No, but it's actually, we know
We
someone,
all do it.
and we know someone who, Eddie and I have a friend or former friend who, you know, I've known him 25 years. You probably 20 years. And, you know, this person continually reinvents himself, and with new monikers and new ideas and new this, and is forever chasing this mental concept of who he imagines himself to be. And it's always chasing that. And he's never actually alive.
Wow. And like Tawny, it is, if I can be this thing or be perceived as this person, this thing, then I'll be liked and loved enough so I will not be abandoned. And not just by my dad, by everything that matters to a teenage girl at that time. Right.
And part of embracing change is accepting that I can handle what's next. That spontaneity and unpredictability is part of living. I can handle what's next. But like you were kind of indicating, and sort of what we made notes here, is that oftentimes you'll find that, particularly with metaphysical people, and really in popular culture, the metaphysical marketplace has offered this to the masses in the last 15 years especially.
The secret.
Exactly. And it's the idea that this limited part of me that is my persona, my identity, somehow is going to manifest or impose an idealized vision of reality for myself on this. Meanwhile, from a feeling space, the universe, God, the cosmos, our subconscious, whatever it is trying to blossom and bring into our experience the essence of what we actually are. And we're trying to impose our version over here, and we really just kind of cut off any real creation. And one of the things I sort of use as a tool with my clients is if, imagine we're all in our mid-40s and you are
21.
Young.
Young, yes.
Yes, but okay, so imagine that your 45-year-old self is sitting over there, and he's really not handsome, and he has a pot belly and 5 kids, by the way.
He's pointing at me.
And but imagine that we could all have a conversation with our 19 or 20-year-old self.
That would be awesome.
Right?
Oh.
And we could say, dude, you don't realize this, but for the next 25 years, your rent, your car payments, your groceries, your clothes, a couple of vacations, not as many as you think you're going to go on, you're going to need about $500,000 just to get by. And your 20-year-old self would go, oh my God, where am I going to get $500,000? You'd be completely overwhelmed. But sitting here at this table right now, we know that's what we've spent probably.
Oh,
at
God.
least.
If.
You know, that just to live. But at 20 years old, if you would have told us this is what you're going to need, we would have panicked, because where would that come from? But somehow we're here, and everything we've needed has come, right? So what does that tell us?
That tells us to get out of our own way and keep dropping back to our center.
Yeah.
And really feeling what that feeling is, and then going, it's like a lotus, you keep going into the feeling of what that feeling is.
Right.
Because we will instantly go, oh, I know what that is. That's da-da-da. That's shame. That's detachment. That's abusive parents. And
but by mentally labeling it,
exactly, you're not going
feeling
in it.
You're not feeling it.
And that's a safety mechanism.
Right.
And Hi, I'm Tony Katane. But then when you feel it, and you keep going into it, it gets less scary, more powerful, more grounding.
You become more powerful. You become more grounded. Not it. You. Me.
Did
you.
Wow. Did you see? I was detached.
Yeah. Well, because you're kind of analyzing it.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we as we go into our feeling space, we descend into a place that is, primordial. That is before words, that is just the essence of who we are. And you can feel that stillness takes over in your mind, all the worries just stop.
That's true.
It's like I can't even pretend to be an expert on meditation, right? But one thing I have observed is that, and of course, I'm sure you've heard this a million times with clients as well, is that I can't do that because I try to sit still and my mind
is so busy.
Yeah. Because they have this idea that meditation is something that you do to control your life.
And to get what you want.
Right, and to make it what you want.
Right.
When the whole idea, from a certain perspective, is just to witness, wow, I never really knew all this chaos and crap was going on as soon as I just closed my eyes or keep my mouth shut for 5 seconds, right? And what that overwhelm should just cause you to throw your hands up and surrender.
Which is what it's designed to do.
Right, and then just kind of let everything go, to kind of give up and go, wow, I can't compete with this. This isn't working, and just let it go. And you kind of go into this place.
The image they're giving me as you say this is we're constantly, when we're in that state, pushing not one boulder, but half a dozen boulders up the side of a cliff, trying to get it to the top. Or we can surrender authentically, connect, ground, and center ourselves. And then we see the machine beside of us that's hauling the boulders up to the top of the mountain for us. Meaning, once we stop efforting so much, we can get out of our headspace and drop down to the real feeling, the gut feeling of it. I like that. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening to On Air with Tony Sweets. Truth be told, I'm Eddie Connor.
I'm Tony Sweet.
I am Jacob.
And we are here with, I'm so waiting for the last name, sorry.
Jacob Cabral.
I know, I'm not used to you being in here. It's just, and talking with the audience. The intern, Jacob Cabral, the intern.
Yes.
And we're here with Jack Rourke. He's a best-selling author. He's a psychic counselor. He is also a psi investigator. And he's giving us 5 things that can change your life. The first thing was, get over your story, people. Because that's a tough one. It's just a tough one to do. And so he's
in my hometown. There's the same story for 50 years. You hear people say the same story.
It's a collective story,
Yes.
though, and
Yes.
if one person steps out, there's that link in the chain that goes, because what you're doing is showing that you can have more.
Right.
You can be something different.
Right. At least make it humorous.
that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference. So in getting over your story, you're not as bad or as great as you think you are. And one of the things he was talking earlier about, he gave us tools on how to raise our standards and create new boundaries. The second thing is embrace change. And I like how you were asking, does desire for change conflict with how your story meets your needs? And you articulated that very, very well. And we're segueing over into commit to emotionally embodied feeling. Psychic powers are not feelings. What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that?
It really means just that. I mean, it typically, we could kind of, psychic energy, the word psychic comes from psyche, right? Of the soul, blah, 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 right? And, psychic energy is really just the mental and emotional emanations of our physical being, right? These things are measurable, yeah? But
scientifically measurable.
Right, they're measurable. And, we can see their effects in our relationships. We can see the effects on, in gadgets in a hospital or in a lab, right? But the truth is that a lot of people who get involved in this work is a lot of metaphysical concepts are employed to avoid actually feeling. And you'll find with a lot of people who identify as sensitive or highly empathic people especially, oftentimes have an inability to tolerate emotion. even just if I claim to be highly empathic and, I perceive something
That I do something that irritate you.
right, or I perceive something is wrong with Eddie because maybe I just need recognition. Maybe I feel insecure in front of a microphone in a strange place in the middle of a Hollywood studio. So I am accustomed to saving people. I've learned in my family of origin that I have to fix, I have to serve.
In order to be seen as valuable enough not to get kicked out of the family.
Because that's my story.
Yeah.
And I look at Eddie and I'm scanning him unconsciously, trying to find something to glam onto, something that will give me permission to make him part of my story. And so I'm empathic. That's what it is. And I can feel that something's wrong with Eddie and I need to fix that.
Wow.
Right? And so that's one example. But another example is working with clients, being unable to tolerate their suffering or their confusion, or as we merge with our clients and we begin to embody what's actually happening inside of them, that inability to tolerate that, we begin to weave a mental journey, a mental story where we take our clients out of their emotional experience and bring them up into a metaphysical mindset where the afterlife is beautiful, everything is perfect, you're going to get what you need. And we lift our clients up out of their actual experience and create this alternate reality that in itself is enabling someone else to disconnect from who they really are. So under the guise of helping someone, we're actually imposing a way of preventing them from being more deeply connected with themselves. And so I could talk ad nauseum about this, and my new book is going to be a lot about this.
And what's the title of the new book?
Well, the publisher in the end will settle that, but tentatively it's Beyond Psychic, A Rational Guide to Extraordinary Being.
How did you get to the rational? Because you are the most and Lord knows, you throw a rock up in this town, you're going to hit a psychic, a medium, or a healer.
Sure.
And unfortunately, not a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
So how was it you came to this very grounded, almost scientific is too small of a word, but you get it.
Yeah.
Scientific approach to intuition and being a psychic counselor?
Well, let me say this first, is Tammy Simon, who's the owner and publisher of Sounds True, is really a profoundly deep and insightful and accomplished woman. Mm-hmm. And she and her partner read my book, and I guess they were discussing it. And she's the one who coined the rational psychic. So I have to give her,
it's a great brand
for her,
because
recognize her for that.
There's really not many rational psychics out there.
Yeah, so I'm really grateful for the opportunity that she extended to me and the support that all the Sounds True gave me, particularly with that brand. But in my first book, The Rational Psychic, I tell a quick story about how I had a variety of experiences in my life, and I lost a twin when I was 14 years old, and she appeared to me after I've told this story on the show before. After she died, before I knew that she had actually passed. So it was an empathetic near-death experience. She literally appeared to me, I'm dead, great, wow, okay, fantastic, you're good, I'm good, right? But it kind of haunted me, no pun intended, and I had a variety of experiences after that for many years. And I wanted to know, how is this possible, right? And let's be honest, that I struggled with this extrasensory aspect of my person. And there was a lot of confidence issues and other things, social issues and things. So I wanted to get a handle on these things. And so eventually I really decided, I looked at my calendar and went, okay, I'm busy this weekend, and Monday I got this thing to do. But Tuesday, this is, pre-internet, I went in the phone book and, I made a list of all these different bookstores that I was going to go to, because I knew that I was going to find the book that's going to have the answers to why I could see my sister when she was dead.
Yeah.
Right. So I made my rounds, ended up in this massive Barnes and Nobles, and I found this book after scanning a half a dozen books or so. And in the index, it talked about seeing angels. And I was like, well, angels, ghosts, whatever, it's kind of the same thing, right? It's still invisible. How can we see these things? So I hurry to the page and I look, and I don't see anything. Go back to the index, check the page. Okay, it's the right page. Go back again. And when I finally came to the passage, honest to God, I closed the book and I felt like my world bottom had dropped out. I lost all hope. I really was despondent. And I went, what the?
Wow.
And I put the book down, and there was this woman with a little girl, and she grabbed her daughter, and I really, like the whole world seemed to close in, because it was utter BS, like complete nonsense. And
like the perspective that was given was just way up there and no ground.
There's nothing to support it. It was literally like an 8-word sentence. There was no context. It was completely ill-informed. It was old wives' tale bullshit, right? And it hurt. It hurt because this person represented themselves as this expert, and they had all these things. And God, I was really in this place of wanting to know, right? And I know you've probably encountered people like this, or at a place in your life where like, I got to figure this out. Why is this happening, right? And this is before I really understood anything about parapsychology or anything else. And so I wanted to know. I wanted my story to make sense, because until I could make my story make sense, I felt off balance, and I didn't know how to raise my standards or how to go to a different place, because I felt like I had this great big hole in the foundation of my being and my person. So what that taught me was there is no one else.
That's right.
There is. And actually, Eddie, you said something to me about 20 years ago. You said, Jack, I could tell you all about spirit guides and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And you were like off in another world, so you might not remember this. But you said the truth is that that'll never work with you. You said you need to know that it's already inside of you, right? I was really young then. And I was like, well, you're right. That's kind of the way I think. But what that did was it put me on the path to, I wanted the nuts and bolts and the whys and the what fors. I'm not going to swallow any bit of just hoo-ha just because it makes me feel good. Mm-hmm. And here's the wonderful thing. After my book came out, I was sitting at home one night. Now we can just, Amazon, here we go, bang. I mean, I know, thousands of dollars on Amazon, right? But I wanted this book. And I don't know why. There was a book that I wanted. I felt compelled. I had to go get it. Of course, Barnes & Nobles and Amazon have put everybody else out of business, including our favorite Bodhi tree here in L.A.
I know.
And so I go to the Barnes & Nobles, and as I'm going up the escalator and walking toward the metaphysical section, I see this familiar face staring at me from the exact place that I stood almost 20 years earlier. And it was 8 copies of my book.
Oh, wow.
And it was just I had this like goosebumps all over my body.
And all through you.
And intuitively I felt like I had come this full circle, and that I'm the answer I'm looking for.
That's a great line.
And that's really what these 5 steps are trying to show, is that you're the answer you're looking for. And the more you avoid how you feel, what's actually happening in your being, you are avoiding the real answer and you.
Yeah. I said we get caught up in activity junkieitis.
Yeah.
And we honestly believe that that's the work at first.
Yeah.
But the work isn't any of the activity. It is literally just dropping down into. I love that story.
It really is. And I remember when I first started doing this work, I worked so hard. I wouldn't let my clients talk, and I would just spit facts at them, and they would go, wow, that's amazing. How do you know these things? Same thing with police work I've done and things like that. Oh, this guy's great. They're referring colleagues and whatnot. And then I realized, who it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's not what I can perform. It's not what I can show you. And now, the more I'm able to just be still and be quiet, and help my clients feel embraced and comfortable in their stillness.
Yeah.
Just change happens.
What they just said was when you're in that space and you're giving the information from that space, that's the perfect model and feeling model for them to know it's safe for them to do it too, for themselves.
Right.
And so before we run out of time, step 4 is create a new physical routine. I've been telling myself that ever since you know me.
I noticed that when I walked in and there was that tray of chocolate chip cookies sitting right here.
And Jacob, who brought the cookies in here?
Eddie.
Eddie did.
Oh, he rats you out.
Cut it in turn.
But yeah, he created a new physical routine, and because part of it is, I'll speak really quickly to that, is part of it is if you're wanting change, you may not realize, but the people and the circumstances that you've used to insulate yourself in your story are going to keep you in that story. So you need to create a physical action that literally turns you into a different path. Whether it's as you're getting older, you need to be more physically active. You've got to get up in the morning, you've got to get on the gym, and voila, you see people who are living by a story that you want to live.
Oh, yeah.
And then by making step 5, create authentic connections.
That's the bottom. You know what's so funny? A lot of the people that will say, I want a relationship, I want a relationship, I want a relationship. One of the things I can't.
They don't have a relationship with themselves.
Yeah. Hello. It's a special relationship, but I'm so sick of it. Oftentimes there'll be somebody who says, I want a relationship. And then I can literally say to about 60% of them, me included, if you knew for a fact that you were going to take your clothes off today and be with that person romantically, how would you feel? And they're like, oh, no. And so it's kind of like the very people they want that are at the gym doing the thing they say they need to do that they're not going to do until they meet the person, which they're never going to meet because they ain't going to take their clothes off in front of them.
Well, the truth is, too, and on a more intimate level, is that you're never, if you can't tolerate being with the truth, the authentic aspects of your own person, if you're not acting from that, if you're not being that, then those people aren't going to recognize that in you. And until you're connected with that and you're emanating at oneness with your fundamental truth of who you actually are, you're never going to feel truly loved.
And then when those people do come in some capacity, not the intimate love part, but when they come in that capacity, if they come in prematurely, if your frequency is here and theirs is up here, you're not going to see it. You're not going to recognize it, and you're going to run them off too.
So how do we create these authentic connections?
Yes, how?
Well, thank you for prompting me.
Step 5.
Part of it, I hate to beat a dead horse, is first get in harmony with your own body's rhythms.
It's the truth. It's true.
And how's that?
How do you
do that?
Literally be able to be still enough to feel your own breath.
Okay.
Be able to sense your own heartbeat, have your feet on the ground, and be able to tolerate just looking at someone else in the eyes and talking to them without having to pull away. But before you do that, you have to feel comfortable in here, because otherwise you're going to retreat out over here, or your eyes are going to go over here.
Yeah.
And you can't have that connection. You can't have that resonance. You can't mirror someone and mirror, rapport comes when we feel commonality. And most times people are too busy trying to use their words to find something in common when that's only like 5% of our communication. That leaves 95% of our communication and 95 chances out of 100 to create resonance with someone and a meaningful connection outside. So we ask them a bunch of questions, and a sensitive person feels like you're intruding. Or how many times have you been on a date and feel like you're being interviewed for a job?
Oh, God. When's the last time you washed your bedclothes?
Yeah.
Well, you're not coming over. You'll never know.
So, we just, we want to be able to be with ourselves, then be able to mirror that other person, reflect back their positive aspects, show gratitude for just the simplest part of who they are.
Which is one of the purest ways ever to create the authentic connection. So let's go back and recap.
Yep.
So these are 5 things that will change your life by psychic counselor, psy investigator, and author Jack Rourke. And the first one is get over your story. I'm fascinated by that. I've heard it a million times, but the way, and I'm glad we spent the most time on that one.
It really is the most important.
It is the most important. Number 2 is embrace change. Ask yourself, does desire for change conflict with how your story meets your needs? Number 3 is commit to emotionally embodied feeling. Feelings scare a lot of people.
Yep.
And I like the way you helped us understand that. 4 is create a new physical routine. Don't look at me. And 5 is create authentic connections. Wasn't that authentic? Did you feel it?
I sure did.
It was the psychic knives from across the room. You're
Right.
welcome. So now where can we find you at, Jack? Where can Tony's audience find you?
Well, right now you can find me at www.jackrorton.net. We're going through a rebranding right now, so there'll be a new website soon called ElitePsychicSolutions.com.
Ooh.
But right now we're still at jackrorton.net. And please check out The Rational Psychic on Amazon, or go directly to the Sounds True website, because there's tons of amazing products and really cutting edge authors there that can really help one get in touch with that fundamental essence and experience the greatness of their own inner being. So there's a lot of wonderful tools in there. But if you want to learn a little more about psychic phenomena, check out my book.
I think you got a little book
Yeah.
right here in these 5 things.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, we want to thank Jack, and I have to say I learned a lot, and I hope you guys did too. And Eddie and I will be back next week. Eddie, do we know who yet? I know one of them.
We have Nikki the Healer is going to be here. Sarah Taylor was going to be here, and I got a lovely email from her saying she can't do it this coming Friday. And there's an email going out to someone else, and we're waiting to hear back from her.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then in 2 weeks, we have psychic medium Shar Margolis that's going to be in studio. So, and then, no, actually 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Okay.
Just go to truthbetoldwebtv.com.
Check
Check out all that stuff. All right. Thank you, guys. We love you, and thanks for tuning in. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, and actually on YouTube. All of our videos are there. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Jack.
Bye.
Bye.